including the dean, and here we are.
That's true. I'm not sure if you gave me your business card or if I gave you yours,
Yeah.
but I did email you the next day.
Yes, you did.
Always the follow up.
That's correct. That's correct. So we've been on a journey. I want to salute again our counseling services team and everyone involved with putting this together, because this will be a transformative moment in your, not just in your time at Bowie, but in your life if you allow it to be. So that being said, I don't know how I'm going to hold this book. I have my notes here. So just bear with me if I get a little awkward. We're going to make it work. Okay, everybody good with that? Everybody good with making it work? All right, I didn't hear you. Okay, awesome. We make do with what we have. We make it work, right? So I will start. Do you mind if I call you Chazz for the sake of this?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. And there will be a book signing, just so you all know. Chazz will be signing books after we're going to have a dialogue between him and I. Then there'll be an opportunity for you all to ask questions directly, and then there will be a book signing. So please don't leave without getting your book signed, okay? All right, so we're going to start. Well, I had a chance to go through this book, and it's an awesome book. If you don't like to read, get an audiobook. My suggestion to you, though, is the things that you don't like to do, that you go ahead and do anyway. So get the audiobook and read at the same time. It'll develop skills you never thought you had. But I will start on page 9, and you can't see this. And do they have your books yet? Or they'll get them later? What do you think?
We could just start. Yeah, we can wait.
Wait. Okay, but I'm going to refer to one of the illustrations that you'll see in the book. How many of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of need? All right, and it talks about the basic needs of every human being. What Chazz has done in this illustration, and you'll see it when you get your book, is he's also now talked about the expansion of oneself. How to use that basic hierarchy of need and what it means to then expand oneself. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Before I begin, let me do sort of an ask of question here. How many of you want more money? Raise your hand. How many of you want to be successful? How many of you want to live a happy and full life? Okay, I need you guys to tune into this discussion right now, because I'm going to give you some secrets. Me and Michelle have a lot of content that we're going to share with you, as well as some personal stories, because I was in your shoes just a couple years ago. But in reference to the book and the expansion of oneself, in life, there are things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. And I remember when I was at Hampton University, I had a terrible diet. I wasn't working out. I was grind, hustle, because I got to get a job after I graduate. And one of the things that I started to realize was I was working harder, but my grades weren't getting better, right? So there's something amiss here. I wasn't taking care of my body. So here's an analogy that I always use, right? You know, I have a Honda. I used to have a BMW, but I can't afford it. It's too expensive. I have a Honda now. But in a car, what do you have to do for a car? Oil change the tires, do the things that are required so you can have a long relationship with your car, right? Same thing for your body. You've got to take care of your body. And guess what happens? Similar to a car and a body, if you take care of your car, it might get you to your destination faster. If you take care of your body, you will get better grades, you will make more money, and people will enjoy being around you. So this is sort of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom, you have the basics: food, water, psychological needs, and safety. And then at the top, you get to self-actualization, which is, I believe and know that no matter where I am in life, I can think a thought and manifest it in my life and change the course of my life. But it's really hard to believe in yourself when you don't have the energy to execute on your dreams. You got to eat more fruits and veggies. You got to have a balanced diet so you can actually have I speak a lot about neuroscience, so you can actually have the brain power to actually live up to your potential and to achieve your dreams. So when I was in school at Hampton University, I was studying computer science. The dean talked about my bio. I got an F, my first computer science programming class. And I always had a dream of working with Apple and Sony and things. And I didn't think that school was right for me. I wanted to drop out. I felt like, I'm a computer science major. There's no black dudes that look like me. This is not for me. But throughout that period, I started to be mindful of my mental diet as well as who was around me. They say you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So those people that are around you have an effect on you and you have an effect on them. And they even say the average of your 5 friends, in terms of salary, you guys will all get paid the same amount as well, right? So you got to keep that stuff in mind. So I had to change who I was so I could live a better life when I was at Hampton. So that sort of talks about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and a story about how and why it's important.
Thank you so much for that. How many of you have ever felt like you didn't belong with the thing that you dreamed of? Right? You might be there right now. And so these things that Chazz is sharing with you are very important because it doesn't mean that you don't belong. It may mean that you need to make an internal adjustment first, right? I'll tell a little bit about my story a little bit later, but I want them to hear more from you than from me today. So we're going to move to the next question, which is,
We are taught to work extremely hard, and we're taught that we have to work twice as hard to get the same amount of success. And I think over time that affects us mentally. And we don't create the space for us to rest. We don't create the space for us to do the things that we know that we need to do so we can last the long haul and actually enjoy this life. Um, you know, I'm sure many of you have Instagram, TikTok, and stuff. It's very easy for us to compare ourselves to everybody on social media. And, this was last week, I'm scrolling on social media, and one of the things that you'll see is, especially if you find like a lot of motivational content, it's always hustle, hustle, grind. And there's no time or no substance in terms of what is it that I need to do for myself to take care of myself. And that's why the counseling center here at Bowie and other universities and seeking the care that you need is paramount. Because what I found, and I've been to therapy and I still continue to go to therapy. I also use ChatGPT as my therapist. I wouldn't recommend that, but you can also go to a therapist, right? But the point is, when you take care of yourself, your life gets better. When you go to therapy, your life gets better. And I really had to drill that into my mind because when I had just graduated Hampton, had my master's, had my bachelor's, and I was off into the workforce. And I think I told you a little bit. I work for a National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So we work with FBI, CIA, and I run some of their cyber defense stuff. But I was at that job and I still maintained that hustle and grind culture. I had an hour-long commute. You guys probably don't experience this yet, but if you work in the DC area and you've got an hour-long commute and you gotta go to work and then go back home after that, it drains you. It literally drains you. The point I'm trying to make is when I graduated and had my first job, I was still in that hustle culture and I wasn't taking care of myself. So I was working harder professionally, trying to climb the ranks, make more money, be successful, be more happy, and yet I was still depressed, burnt out, and didn't have the things I need to do for my mind, body, and soul. So it's like this complex where we think if we work harder, my life gets better. Yeah, there's a sense where you work hard and you have discipline and structure, it's important, but we have to take care of ourselves. And I think we could talk about that in some of the chapter.
yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, if you don't mind. So one of the, Chaz talked about rest and the power of rest. I actually just recently did for our, with our, in collaboration with our HR department, for our professional staff, a presentation on the power of rest. And if you don't mind my adding, we don't choose sleep, right? Some of you may have challenges with sleep, that's fine, but eventually your body is going to go to sleep. But you have to choose to rest, to counter the hustle. Sleep is natural, rest is a choice. And when you understand that, and when you understand that rest is needed, the spirit, soul, body connection for you to accomplish what Chazz is talking about today, you need to start choosing rest and understanding when you work harder versus when you rest, and let the work you've done take root. Okay, so we'll continue to come back to that theme. Spirit, soul, body. You need all three. Spirit, soul, body work together to get these done.
If I could add just one thing,
Please,
I think
please.
that's perfect. You know, when we talk about rest and we talk about doing the things that we need to do for ourselves, one of the things I had to implement was regular exercise. And when I was growing up, I grew up in Ellicott City, Columbia area, went to Hampton. I played basketball, I did sports, but I didn't understand the benefits of exercise as it relates to how I feel daily, how it affects me on the job, how it affects me with my grades and my study habits. So there's this study that I always talk about. Is a group of German scientists in 2007, and they wanted to understand how exercise improves focus and concentration in the brain. So in 2007, they took two groups of people, and they wanted them to learn new vocabulary words. One group of people learned new vocabulary words after working out. The other group learned new vocabulary words before working out. The group that learned the new vocabulary words 20% faster were the people that learned those vocabulary words after working out. So what I always tell people is, I don't have enough time to work out. I have to study. I don't have enough time to work out. I have to grind. The truth is, when you work out first and you take care of yourself, you get to your goals faster. Your brain works more efficiently. There's something that's released into the brain called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You're like, Chazz, why are you telling me all this neuroscience stuff? I don't care about it. I'll tell you. If you work out and take care of your body, your brain releases chemicals in the brain so it can make you smarter. So you can achieve your goals faster. It's a cheat code. This is a cheat code. And I think this is sort of the paradigm shift that we need to take in terms of mental health and taking care of ourselves. Not only that, after a good workout, the dopamine is released into the brain and you feel good, right? Those brain hormones. I worked out this morning. I knew I needed to show up here and to be my best self. So that's just an example of taking care of yourself so you can do the things that you know that you are called to do on this earth.
That's awesome. And for those of you that, when you say workout, because I want to talk about that a little bit, just a little bit. Sometimes when you say workout, you automatically think gym membership, right? And I would say that for many people, that could be a deterrent to why they don't exercise, because there's only one context that it's framed in. I work out, but I don't go to the gym. Right? I have a small set of weights in my house. My thing is walking. I'm a big walker. So you have to also, within each of these things that we're talking about, you have to find what works for you. Right? Everything is not going to work for everybody, but find those things that work for you. If you're a walker, walk. If you're a runner, run. If you just want to lift weights, just lift weights. If you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. But your body is always dictating what you do, whether you realize it or not. And so find the space for you within the physicality of what you do. Look up 8 dimensions of wellness when you get a chance, all of that's connected. Within the physicality of what you do, look at what you need to help you get to where you are aiming to be. So next question, if you don't mind, we're going to move forward. If success isn't just about the degree, job title, or salary, what is it really about? How did your definition of success, and I think you shared some of this, but let's drill down into it a little further. How did your definition of success change over time?
And, you know, success, that word, especially with social media, we really tie it to material items. We tie it to a nice BMW. We tie it to a nice Mercedes. We tie it to a nice bank account, a beautiful wife, a beautiful good-looking husband, right? And I think while all of those things are great, what really matters is how you feel each and every day. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel joyful? Do you feel happy? Do you feel like you're in lockstep with your purpose? And even if you don't know your purpose, you're still on the journey to figure it out. And in my journey in life, I failed my first computer science programming class. I got an F. I didn't even show up for the final. I didn't feel like it was worth it for me to show up to the final. And
Don't do that.
yeah, don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. But over time, I started to change my definition of what success was. And I started to develop a new relationship with myself and what it really means to live a happy and full life. And what I've said, and I talked about it in the book, is happiness, success is not chased. You don't chase it. It ensues as a byproduct of well-being. So if you take care of yourself, success becomes easier and you enjoy the journey. You enjoy the journey. You enjoy waking up in the morning. I remember when, this is 2017, I had just graduated from Hampton. I keep going back to this story, but I'm going to dive a little bit deep into this. I was making, I don't know, 80,000, something like that. And I thought I made it. I had a BMW. I had a condo looking over the Potomac in Washington, D.C. I was working. I had a good government job. And one of the things that really hurt me was every single day I was waking up unfulfilled. I was fearful. I was sweating. I was depressed. And yet I had all the material objects and success, but mentally, something was wrong. I was working harder on the job thinking my life would get better, but mentally, emotionally, something was wrong. And that's when, I developed a morning routine. I started doing this research on how to improve the quality of my life. And slowly but surely, my life began to change. And I hated my job. I hated waking up in the morning and going to that job. But it's interesting, as you start to change yourself internally, your external reality begins to change. So when I started changing myself, my thoughts, my self-talk, negative self-talk, to shift to positive self-talk, a morning routine, meditation, exercise, that same job got better. I was still in the same job, but it got better. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because you may be sitting in class, you may be studying and doing your research, and you feel like you don't have enough, you're not smart enough, or you feel like you don't have enough resources to get the job done, or you're nervous about your future. If you begin to take care of yourself, your life begins to change internally and then externally, and things become a little bit easier over time, and it builds momentum. So success has shifted from material items to how do I feel each and every day?
Thank you for sharing that. And one of the things I want to, because that's so important. Our society teaches us to live by what we can see, right? But what we're talking about, when you talk about spirit, soul, body, you're talking about key drivers of who you are that you can't see except when they manifest. So when you think about spirit, your soul, where you make your decisions, your intellect, all that, we look internally. Another thing our society doesn't necessarily teach consistently. Introspection is one of the words that I keep as you speak. Looking inside. What is it that you want? And I know a lot of you are here, and we are grateful that you are here. But sometimes the challenge is digging yourself out from around things you claim not to like, but could be the best things for you. Right? I used to hate spinach. I don't know about you. How many of you like spinach? Anybody like spinach? Oh, you like spinach?
Oh, wow.
You're good. You're good. I didn't like spinach until much, much later. But spinach, you need to eat spinach. I don't need to like it to know that it's good for me. Right? You don't need to like your class to know that you have to do well in your class. But that can't happen as Chaz says, unless we're looking for how we are truly defining not just success, but who we are. Because that's what it's going to come down to. Do I want it? If I just want the BMW, then the hustle and grind culture is that's all I'm going to get. But if I want something more than that, that may or may not include a BMW. If I want to be and live up to my potential, then I have to do some internal deep work, as we call it, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that was it. No.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next question, which is many students, especially in the Black community, carry an invisible pressure to succeed, not just for themselves, but for their families and everyone who sacrificed for them. How can that kind of weight lead to unbalanced success? And what would you say to students who feel like they're carrying that weight alone?
I got a question. How many of you guys feel like there's pressure to succeed? Raise your hand. Okay, that's most people in this room. And I've felt like that, and I've struggled with it. You know, particularly in the Black community, we know that we've come from a long history of pain and struggle. And one of the things that I had to do in terms of myself is understand that history and how it affected me. I think for me, success became this unconscious drive to do the best that I could because I knew how many people had sacrificed for me. And, you know, I was getting 4 hours of sleep, working extremely hard, falling asleep at the wheel at the stoplight, right? Driving on 495 because I wanted to work hard and achieve and show that my ancestors didn't waste their time with me. And I feel like we all unconsciously sort of have that drive and that motivation. Even closely, you know, my family. You know, my mother's here. She got her PhD at Howard University. She's here today. Hey, Mom. And she is a living proof of success because she is literally the first person to earn her doctorate on my mother and dad's side of the family, right? So the reason why I bring this up is because for a long time, we didn't even have the opportunity to read, right? And the amount of sacrifice that our ancestors have put in to get us to the point where we are on stage and we have universities that support us and we have money pouring in to support our education. We have HBCUs to ensure our success and build a community of love and spirit and joy. There's something to be said about it. But I do feel like there's this unconscious drive where if we don't succeed, our family loses, or I didn't live up to my potential. And I call it sacrificial guilt syndrome, where we feel guilty for resting. We feel guilty for not working. Where does that come from? I felt it. And I think it really comes from our ancestors and the fact that we push and strive so hard to succeed. You know, I read a quote in a book, said something to the nature of, would you rather be at war with yourself and at peace with the world, or would you rather be at peace with yourself and at war with the world? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. There's an internal journey and struggle that you have to work through. And if you can read my book, listen to Michelle, go to counseling, that struggle gets a lot easier, and then you'll start to win at life. But you've got to go seek those resources to change your relationship with rest, to change your relationship with success. So you can make more money, get the job, and live out the dreams that you're supposed to. And by the way, when I talk about success and well-being and stuff, success and material items, a lot of people are like, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to chase? Here's the thing. If you listen to us, if you read my book, if you seek those resources, not only will you achieve those material items faster, but you'll enjoy the process and you'll feel good when you wake up in the day. And I think that is really what success is. So, yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think that part of, when you talk about sacrificial guilt syndrome, I like the way you frame that. I think that comes from the spirituality of lineage, right? But I think that I personally don't believe that our ancestors did what they did to obligate us to anything. That's not love, right? If I have to freely give it to you. So I think that the way we honor that heritage is to become who we were meant to be. So we build on the foundation, right? We're not trying to recreate the foundation. So it is a different kind of work. We are in a different place. We don't have to dishonor what came before in order to do what we need to do now. Would you agree with that?
That's powerful. You just came up with that right now? That was good. That was good. I felt that. Man, I don't even know what to say to that. No, that was excellent. And yeah, I don't even know what to say to that.
I believe that because I think so often we don't talk about it enough as a community, as individuals or as a community, that there is a preconceived notion that because those that came before me did X, Y, Z, that I have to, but they had to, so if you think about the agricultural process, right? The first time you sow the seed, you got to till the ground. After that, you just take care of what's wrong. Right, so the question really becomes, how are we taking care of what's already been planted and what's already grown? Now, if there's new soil to be tilled, if there's new ground to be broken, then we have to do that.
Right.
But we're not trying to rebuild the foundation. If there are cracks, let's fix them. But we have to honor the history of heritage by living out to our potential. We have to learn to rest, regardless of whether or not our ancestors had that opportunity, because they loved us enough to do what they needed to do.
And something just coming to mind, I'm glad you said that, is especially in college, we start to develop certain habits, and those habits carry with you for the rest of your life, unless you change them deliberately. And, this conversation is a conversation I wish I had when I was in college, because it would have completely changed the course of my life. Literally. I wish somebody told me the secrets to live a full life. I had to go read it. When I was depressed in 2017, I spent thousands of dollars reading books. I was reading probably 45 books a year trying to improve the quality of my life. I had to go seek those resources. And a lot of those resources are in the book, cheat code, but it's just so important that we change our relationship with success. And again, we're in this for the long haul. You know what I mean? I feel like we're like, oh, if I just get this job, I'll be okay. If I just get this salary, if I just get this grade, my life will get better. Here's the thing. You're going to keep pushing the goal line. You're going to keep making more money, and you're going to want another BMW, another Mercedes. All of you are going to be successful. The question is, are you going to be able to sustain it? Are you going to be able to enjoy the life as well? And that's what we want. We want you to enjoy it as well.
Because we're getting close on time, so I want to add one thing to that. How many of you have actually taken the time, okay, it doesn't have to just not a right or wrong answer, to think about what you want? Okay. How many of you have given yourselves permission to let that change as your experience changes? Not the same amount of hands on them. And I think that's the other thing, because when you talk about the plan, and when we're talking about personal and professional development, life is fluid. right? If you think of life as a current, what you know right now getting in the boat does not mean that you know how the ocean is going to flow or the river or the stream, right? So you have to be willing to be skilled enough in knowing who you are and what you want, using your resources to navigate the current. Give yourself that permission. That's part of what rest is about. That's part of what understanding that it's okay to change, right? I think, Chaz, one of the first things you said was watch what you watch on social media. Watch what you watch in general, because all of that is feeding your soul, right?
Yeah, consciously and unconsciously. We don't often realize, I mean, even the type of music that we listen to affects how we feel. And, you know, I used to listen to a lot of hip hop and rap. I mean, I still do, but I'm very mindful of the language that they're using because I'm sure you've heard of affirmations, and every thought, every word that we hear and say affects our subconscious mind, which is this powerful force that influences who we are. And if we're not careful on the type of content that we're looking at or the music that we're listening to, it affects you. It literally affects you. You can't tell me when somebody's disrespectful towards you and they use their words to hurt you, it affected you. So if there's words in a certain song that you're listening to over and over again, it affects you unconsciously and consciously. So you have to be careful about that.
That's good. And that's part of making the choices about your life, navigating the current of life, knowing, okay, I need to step away from this conversation. I need to change my own language to myself and to others. So I think it's important for you to have permission to make those choices. Give yourself that permission. You use the information you have now, then leverage that information when you need to make changes. So that has always been something for me that's been very helpful. Um, and I think I shared this with you, but I'm a cancer survivor. So you talk about changing, having to change, literally going from here to here, where you have the success, you have the house, you have maybe more than one house, you have cars, you have family, and you lose most of that. But what was left? The support system to get me through that, right? So clearly my definitions of what success changed. Actually, that's how I got into wellness. That's how I got into wellness was because of the experience that I had coming out of that, being in the hospital for almost a year and going through that process. So trust me, when we're speaking, just like Chazz is speaking from his experience, I'm speaking from my experience. This isn't, he has a lot that's in that book, and I want to encourage you. I've gone through it to read it. But just because it's not in the book doesn't mean it doesn't, you can't own that experience. Take that as a resource. But you're going to have your own resources. Some of you in this room are going to develop resources because of the experiences that you have. And those are the things that are really going to, I think, really hit home and really come across as they resonate with people. And people feel as if, unlike social media, it's not a facade. This is the real deal. We would probably go a lot deeper here today if we had more time. And that's not to say that this isn't valuable. But there is a lot to each of our stories and each of the stories that each of you have in this room. So honor your story just because you make mistakes, just because things don't go the way you think. Honor your story. Make changes. Do the things that Chazz is suggesting. And why don't you go ahead and hop in there for that last few minutes, and then we'll have Q&A.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a story. I'm glad that you brought up your story. I think it's important. Um, I think this was 2000. George Floyd died, so that was 2021, 22. Yeah, when George Floyd died. Yeah. So during that time frame, me and my family had rented a beach house down in Santa Rosa, Florida. It's a beautiful beach house. We were the only black family on this road, okay? And it was my entire dad's side of the family. And during that time frame, there was a lot of injustice as it relates to police brutality and a lot of uprisings and things happening across the country, obviously, right? So we went down to Florida. A lot of people were like, you shouldn't go to Florida. We went anyway. And it was probably around 6 p.m., and me and my brother went outside on the beach, okay? And we were just playing some football. It was beautiful weather. It was probably 75 degrees. The sun was just coming down, and we were having fun. And I looked down at the beach in front of our house, and etched into the sand was words that said, "God hates black people," right? And in that moment, I was hurt. I started to tear up. I got so upset because, like I said, like words affect you, right? That affected me. I was nervous for my family. I didn't know if I should tell them and go inside the house, and they would be pissed, or call the cops because I was nervous for the safety of our family. And all of a sudden, I stopped and I said, wait a minute. I'm making myself upset. I'm making my own self upset during this issue. And I told myself I wasn't going to accept the suffering from somebody else. And the reason why I'm sharing this story is because there are things in life that we don't like. There are people that aren't going to believe in your dreams. There are people in your life that are going to say some disrespectful things to you. And there are things that are in life that are going to throw you off your feet, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in marriage, whether it be health. But one thing that we can do is we can choose to respond to events as opposed to unconsciously react. And in that space of responding, there's a choice. You have a choice on how you show up in life. And that story of me in Santa Rosa, Florida is just a quick example. But when we talk about health and we talk about mental wellness, there are things in life that we don't like, and we have to manage it. How do you manage it? You respond to events as opposed to react. And some of that is in the book as well as that story. But I just wanted to highlight that point because, especially being Black in America, there are things that are going to happen to you that are going to affect you. But guess what? We're still going to rise up, and we're still going to activate our potential. And some of those tools are in that book, so you can continue to achieve your potential despite anybody else's negativity towards you.
Thank you so much. Let's give Chazz Scott a hand, and then we'll take questions. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Mitchell, how would you like to handle questions? Do you want students to come to the front, or do you want to pass the mic? Any questions for Mr. Scott? We will have the book signing right after this, so don't leave without your book.
Hi, my name is Madison Hall. I'm a second major here at Bowie State and a senior. So my first question is, how do you keep moving while in a transitional / healing phase of life where you feel like you need to take a step back?
That's good. What was your name again?
Madison Hall.
Nice to meet you, Madison. That's a good question. I think, and I just go off this personal experience when I needed to sort of take a step back and change and do some work on myself, is you just have to take the first step. And when you take the first step, you'll build momentum. But there are things that you enjoy to do. I would do those things that you enjoy to do. So it creates energy and livelihood within your spirit. So it renews you. What are those things that you can do that can renew you and give you energy? One of the things I always do is I always take a look at all of the friends and people I associate with, and I say, is this person draining me or is this person giving me energy? There's an exercise in the book for that, but there's things that you can do to renew your spirit and your energy to take a step back so you can do the things that you know that you're called to do on this earth.
Other questions? Just raise your hand. Yeah. And then there's one in the back.
Hi, I'm Naomi.
Hi, Naomi.
What do you
So the question was, what do you do when the people that are draining you are the people that you live with? And that's a tough one. So there are some resources in the book that actually touch on that. But I think the biggest thing is knowing that, talked about responding versus reacting, right? And knowing that, there are people in our lives that we're just not going to like, and we have to just get along with, unfortunately, especially if they're living in the same household. But create space for you. Create space for yourself, whether it be in your own bedroom, whether it be in your own dorm. Create that space for you so you can go back and get renewed as you go back out there and deal with the people that are maybe negative or you just don't like. There's different tactics and strategies on how to deal with them, but I would definitely say take the space that you need within that household, whether it be in a room or in a closet, and renew your spirit and your energy. Do that daily because they'll constantly be, I call them energy vampires. They just take your energy. And like, man, I just got up and you spilling all this negativity? Cat Williams used to say, are you mad at breakfast? What are you gangbanging on bacon? Why are you mad? Anyway, the point is, do the things that you can do to renew your spirit internally somewhere in that household or in that dorm.
Can I ask you?
Yeah. Oh, the mic.
So I wanted to add one thing to that because I think that that is a fantastic question. And a lot of times in life, you're going to be in close quarters with people that you may not like. But I also think that we are sometimes predisposed to, right? Accept the fact that you're not going to like them. Sometimes it's just acceptance. And we also sometimes, I think, reserve this notion that we can control or change people. But as Chazz shared earlier, the only person you can change is you. Make space, as he said, for you, but just understand that's how it's going to be. And navigate that situation in a way that still gives you life, even if it's not coming from those people.
Good.
It was, yeah, in the back.
Hi, my name is Dior. I have two questions. Number one, how do you find what works for you? And how do you know if you're the one draining other people?
Okay, let's start with the first one. What was the first one? How do you know?
Know what works for you? How do you find what works for you in college?
Oh, yeah. So Michelle just said it is trial and error. So one of the things that you'll start to learn as you continue to grow through life is your emotions will tell you sort of what works for you, especially like in terms of like what you want to study. Like if you choose a major and you're like, this is just not sitting well with my heart and spirit, I'm out. Like you know that you're not going to do that for the rest of your life. So I think specifically it's definitely trial and error. You got to figure it out. Figure out what works for you, even with exercise. Not everybody wants to go to the gym. Well, can you do yoga? Can you do stretching? Can you do basketball? Blah, 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 blah. You gotta do trial and error. The worst thing that you can do is just sit and wait for your life to change or just sit and hope that things are gonna change. Go out there, explore, do those things that you're like, I don't know, that might be interesting. And then feel emotionally how it feels towards you when you wake up in the morning. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. So just recognize that there is an emotional guiding system that you can use throughout life. And then your second question?
How do you know if you're the one draining others?
How do you know if you're the one draining others? So this is a good question because when I was at Hampton studying computer science and I got an F, right? I knew I was draining people. Matter of fact, this is great because I wrote this in my notes on my phone so I could bring this up. This is 2012. I was super depressed. But during that time frame, Twitter had just came out and I was tweeting a whole bunch of negativity and people started unfollowing because I was just so negative. I would walk into rooms and people wouldn't want to be around me because I was negative. I was just that draining people. And I felt it and I was like, wait a minute. The most powerful thing that I can do is take care of myself and to be happy so I can make other people happy and have people around me that enjoy to be around me. So there's definitely subtleties of when you're around people and they don't want to be around you and you might be giving off some negative energy or negative comments or stuff like that. So you want to be the person that you would want to be around.
Thank you.
And then I think that'll be
Yes.
time.
Hi, my name's Bree.
Hey, Bree.
So my question was, how you were saying that you should find like a space for yourself. What do you recommend for those people who want to find a space for themselves, but being like alone or like going out to eat or going to the park by themselves is uncomfortable? Do you have like any starters that you know?
So your question is how to find space where you don't like to be in public spaces?
No, more so like, do you have like a suggestion for an entryway? Let's say like if somebody wants to start going out to eat with by themselves, because you have to be comfortable in your own space or with yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, and I'll let Michelle go. Yeah, personally, I actually like to go out to eat by myself, but um, I think it's very interesting. Like I said, there's things that you enjoy to do and there's things that you don't enjoy to do. So just feel what you feel and work towards that. If you don't like going out to eat by yourself, don't do that. If you like to sit and meditate in a closet, do that. If you like to pray in the morning, do that. If you like to pray in the evening or in the middle of the day, do that. So there's things that you can do, but it has to be in lockstep and alignment to who you are because everybody's different. You want to say something?
I was just going to share real quickly that after I went through chemo, I was used to being around people 24/7, 365 for most of my life. Until after I went through chemo and was healed of cancer. One of the first things I challenged myself to do, I used to like, and this is not a plug, but I'm going to use the name. I used to like to go to Panera because I like their sandwiches. And I would just go and I would take a book and challenge myself to sit there and eat and read that book. Because nobody in there wants to be alone, right? But you learn and you grow. If you want to try it, try it. Like Chazz said, if you try it, it doesn't feel good, don't do it again. But now, like Chazz, I love to eat by myself. I will go anywhere. I don't even need a book anymore. But you have to take those baby steps.
Hi, my name is Shamar.
What's up, Shamar?
So my question was like, when you said about your family sacrificing for you, but then you feel guilty because you didn't push yourself or try hard enough, how do you give yourself that self-affirmation to say like, hey, you did your best, you tried? How do you keep yourself from feeling guilty?
It's a really good question, and I think you've actually answered it in your question. For me, I had to change the conversation in my head. And what did that look like? It looked like saying affirmations to myself. I deserve rest. I deserve to learn. I deserve to be patient with myself. I deserve grace. I deserve happiness. These affirmations and saying these words over and over again can have an effect on you, and it starts to change the conversation in your head. So I had to change that conversation. And then also recognize, to similar to what Michelle said, which is, our ancestors and our family have sacrificed for us, but they didn't sacrifice for us to work every single day throughout every single hour. They sacrificed it for us so we could live a full, prosperous, and happy life. And that is the change that I had to change in myself and to recognize that.
I think we have two more.
We have another question.
Yeah, two more. There were two more over here. Where's the mic?
Somebody over here has a question. Okay.
Oh, over here, okay. Then there's two there. You good?
Hello, I'm Zayana. My question was, how do you expect change into your life by you unlearning life habits or like behavior or unlearning patterns that you recognize? How do you expect change or like not trying to dive back into your old ways?
Oh, this is good. This is good. This is actually how I make my money when I go to corporations and speak. But your question is really important. How do we change and how do we sustain that change? A lot of people say it takes 21 days to change a habit. Some people say 90 days. I think it depends on your brain and how long you've had those habits. You know, for me, I started doing all this research on how important it is to have a morning routine. So every morning I do some type of exercise, I meditate, and I read for 20 minutes. And that has literally changed my entire life. Anyway, the point is, it took me forever to wake up an hour earlier. It was the hardest habit to change in myself because I couldn't scroll on social media late at night with all that, the screen and the nighttime, because it would affect me when I wake up. It was the hardest thing. So one of the things that I actually tell you in the book is I tell you sort of how to make small, subtle changes that can radically transform your life over a period of time. It's really hard to change your life like that, right? There's only so much willpower we have. So there are small, subtle things that you can do daily that can make your brain more malleable, which basically means your brain can change easier. So it's less friction, so you can change faster. A quick example for me is I started brushing my teeth with my non-dominant hand. Why, Chazz, why are you telling me this? Because this changes the structure of your brain so your brain can be more malleable so you can make changes more effectively. So there are a whole bunch of neuroscience tips that can help you with change and how to sustain that change so you can live out your potential and do the things that you're called to do on this earth.
I think we may take one more question and then transition to the book signing, right?
I know who has class at 12. Some of you have to leave.
That's the last one.
We can continue the conversation, but those that have to leave, see Miss Shabazz.
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I was just gonna say that y'all did like really well during our conversation. And I was gonna say that if y'all, like everybody in the room wanted to hear like more conversations like this, that I suggest you watch Diary of a CEO podcast by Stephen Bartlett. And that's what y'all conversation reminded me of.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great podcast. As well, you can follow me on social media if you want to hear about any of the work that I do. It's Chazz, Chazzc, Scott, Scott. I'm on Instagram and I talk about all this stuff.
I have one more question. My question was, do you believe that rushing yourself can be a disadvantage in situations?
Yes. And I'm still dealing with this. I mean, even this morning, I was trying to put together my smoothie, drive up here off of 495, and I was rushing to get here, and I got here early. And the only thing that I was doing was making myself stressed. Anyway, the point is, as you start to know yourself and discover yourself, you'll start to realize what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And for me, sometimes rushing was because of poor time management. I wasn't managing my time appropriately. And I do feel like when you rush, you're not doing your best work. You're not giving your space, the ability or space for you to do the things that you're called to do. So I've struggled with this and many other people struggle with it. But one of the things I started to do was study successful people, CEOs and all these celebrities, and many people who are successful. They don't rush. They do not rush. They're very deliberate, they're calm, and they're specific on what they want. And if you can move towards that energy, right, your life will get better. So I talk about some of that stuff in the book as well.
Can we get Michelle's mic back?
No, that's okay.
Oh, here.
I thought they would have been.
So if there are no other questions, I think we are ready to move into the book signing. Oh, there's one.
Find time for rest when you are in school and actual work. So I do have a job too. So how do you find your time management to give yourself time for rest?
Time to rest. I heard you say you work and you go to school. And I'm sure, do you drive?
So I could be here.
You commute? Okay. One thing that I always do, it's very simple. Quick tip, and it's in the book actually, is transition periods, you know, from work to school or vice versa. Before you get out of the car, do something that renews your spirit. Do something very quick. It has 2-3 minutes. Listen to a meditation, do a prayer, do something that renews your spirit before you get out of the car, so you can walk in and bring that energy that you know that you need to do either for work or for school. But sometimes we just carry that energy over to other tasks and other environments. We don't realize that we're bringing that negativity from work to home and home to work, work to school. So do something in the car before you get out.
Thank you.
So if you have more questions for Mr. Scott, he's gonna be around for a minute and you can talk to him one-on-one. We wanna transition into the book signing, so you all can take this great information with you to reflect on it later on.
Right over here.
I'm sure the questions that you have, the answers are in the book. We are so happy to have him here with us today. Let's give him a round of applause.